Welcome to News with a View, a Fat Cat production. You are seeing us live from the studio tonight. Today is June 22nd, 2025, and we are all here. A little clicking there, but that's okay. So we're all ready to go. This is not going to be an episode show. This is just going to be really a test of the live stream after making some repairs. The other night I did a live stream and there was a lot of audio issues with it. But that should be clear now. It really should be pretty good now and not an issue with motorboating. Well, way down low, I still hear a little of it. It's all right. It's not bad. Little motorboating. Never hurt anyone. Tonight we're going to talk about Iran and what's going on since the attack. It was pretty significant. President Trump said what he was going to do. You'll have Democrats who are screaming. I mean, they are just livid about it. I think President Trump has done the world a favor. The Democrats were kept in the dark about it, and which is the president's choice to do that. The president has every right to use the military just about at his disposal. That's why he's called the commander-in-chief, folks. Now, the Wars Power Act does limit him in certain uses of it, but in a limited use, there's not a problem. And I will just point out a very obvious one. When Obama sent our military in to an ally clandestinely and attacked a fortified structure to get Osama bin Laden, everyone had no problem with that. And that was the use of military force by the president. 1979, that War Power Act was enacted in 1973. So 1979, Jimmy Carter ordered our military into Iran to free our hostages. That turned out to be a nightmare due to, really, it was bad planning. And it cost Jimmy Carter the election. Ronald Reagan sent troops into Grenada, Panama. And even though there was some squabbling about that, he was within his constitutional powers to do that. The Democrats are just blowing smoke. The Democrats are actually hoping for an Iranian response, be it against our troops, be it against our civilians or our allies, so that they can jump up and down and said, see, I told you this would happen. We told you. Well, we knew what we were dealing with because for the last 40 freaking years, all Iran has been saying is death to America. There have been assassination attempts made by Iran against top military people, top political figures, and even Iranian dissidents living in America, Canada, and Europe. We know this for a fact, Iran was the largest sponsor of terrorism in our lifetime. And you could say, well, what about Germany, man? 20 years. Well, 25 years. Iran beat them by 15 years. Iran vowed to kill all Jews living in Israel. Iran sponsored proxies in Lebanon, Syria, Egypt. Jordan, they try, but the Jordanian government's not having any of that nonsense. They threw the Palestinians out, I think in 72 or something like that, tossed them out. Because they tried to overthrow the king, King Hussein. The attack on Iran won't stop the knowledge of how to make a nuclear device. It will greatly hinder their ability to make one, even with what they have. I think if Tehran does not go to the table hat in hand, I think it's just going to be a worse slaughter on them until their government is overthrown by the people. Or by the military itself, because really what you do is you threaten the military that if we have to come in there and we capture you, shoot on sight. But we would like Iran to have a military in place, one that is aligned to the people and not to a spiritual leader. That was a mistake made in Iraq, where we really could have gone to those generals and everyone else and said, you know, turn your flag upside down, come out, meet us, we'll secure the location, put your troops under our control with you, because Iraq's going to need a military. It's going to need that to rebuild itself, to continue law and order. And I think that was a huge, huge mistake made by the Bush administration. And like I have said in all my podcasts, I am not in step with any political party locked in step with them. I am a conservative. I am a federalist. If it's allowed in the Constitution, have at it. If there's a question of the constitutionality of it, until the courts say otherwise, other than something just so blatant, you got to wait for the courts to say something, and the final one is the Supreme Court. So my belief is that on certain agendas of the president, he can do what he wants because the laws and the Constitution allow it. Where I had my differences with President Trump was his clawback method of money that was already allocated by Congress. There is a procedure on how you go about to stop that. And he really should have just given 30 days notice. And then just had the Department of Treasury just go, yeah, you could write that check, just don't send it yet. Yeah. Check's in the mail, don't worry. and then go into Congress and had the Congress, which is Republican controlled, say we're clawing it back. So we're going to stop everything from this date through here until we can figure out what's going on. That would have been constitutionally in line with the law that's on the books. So I had a problem with how President Trump did that. I had a problem with how he fired some of the administrators. You go through, say they're ineffective. Go to Senate, they're ineffective. I'm firing them. You just don't blame. I don't have to give you a reason. You do. Humphrey's probate sealed that deal for President Roosevelt in 1934. So I'm not locked in step. And I'm not locked in step with, I don't approve everything that President Trump does. I also didn't disapprove of everything that Joe Biden allegedly did. So it's just that simple. A good idea is a good idea no matter where it comes from. And that's something that people just have to use their common sense. And that's something that has been lacking. We're going to see protests. We're going to see a civil disobedience from the crowd of people that we're dealing with. And just the other day, a company that does crowdsourcing for protests. They pay people to go to protests. But he had said his ones that he has, instructed, don't break the law, don't rob, don't loot, don't block traffic, listen to the police. If you do all that and you get arrested, we're going to be behind you. We have, where he said there's other crowd paid protesters that are there to cause problems. And he says it's easy to spot because they're on standby, and this is basically has been going on with ICE, because there are informants inside ICE who are releasing classified information on where these raids are going to be. So these people are down the street, so when they show up, they're there in a second, and there's a problem. You can't bring the police in quick enough to quell it, and it gets out of control real quick. And he goes, that's the red flag when you see people that just show up and, like, where'd they come from? They're not part of the neighborhood. There's no neighborhood here. We're in Restaurant Row, or we're, in Industrial Park. There's no neighbors there. And so there are paid rioters and looters. This has to be addressed. And also, it's a wake-up call for what's going on in Homeland Security. And maybe in Homeland Security, to continue your employment, you have to go for polygraph tests. And a rescreening of your background check. An agreement that your personal phone can be looked at. And do you use any other device for communications? And if they don't want to do it, somewhere in the language of their hiring. We don't need you anymore. Thank you. Anyone who is caught from Homeland Security giving out this information, treason. Treason. You're aiding and giving comfort to the enemy. And the enemy is criminals. And you might say, well, no, they're not criminal. They're criminals. You're giving aid and comfort to criminals. And these people should be not made an example of. I don't believe in using the law to make an example. The law is already the example. And the remedy in there, could have a minimum sentence or a maximum sentence, depending on the severity. Exercise that. But arrest these people. And anyone that puts their hands on a police officer or federal officer to jail. You could scream on the sidewalk at them. You can call them every name that you could think of. But you can't try to hurt them or impede them. If you do, you will be arrested and will be charged to the full extent of the law that you're going to be found and charged with and if found guilty of. And you might hope that, the next president's going to be a Democrat and will commute it or whatever. Pardon it. But the way it's looking, when you're running at about a 21%, 22% approval rating in the Democrats, and that's Democratic polls to Democrats. That's not Republican. It's not anyone else. It's Democratic polls. 22% approval rate and lower. You might see a little tick, but I'm going to guarantee you that most Americans, for the most part, are behind the president saying enough. 40 years of threats and threats and threats and threats. And then all of a sudden, they're having the capability. Even though Iran has publicly stated, we do not seek to have an atomic weapon. Well, they might not seek it. But push comes to shove, and Russia alluded to that. They said, you could have let the genie out of the bottle here. And, you're going to have Democrats screaming, well, we're not going after North Korea. Donald Trump went over there. He held hands with the lead. We didn't. Google how close we were under Bill Clinton to attacking North Korea, to wipe out their nuclear capabilities. Just Google it. Little side note with Bill Clinton. He had to be talked off the ledge. And not because of the fear of a Russian or Chinese retaliation on it. It was because the North Koreans, their nuclear program was so gizmoed that if we would have attacked it, we would have released radiation. We weren't going to attack them nuclear, but our bombs would have released all their radioactive materials into the air because they weren't bunker-proofed. They weren't anything. And China was like, we don't want this blowing into us. And Russia, right next door, said, we don't want this blowing into us. South Korea said, we don't want this blowing into us. Japan said, we don't want this blowing across the water. Philippines and scientists in the States said, hey, this radiation travels. It might start over there, but it will circle the globe. And China and Russia said, we'll get them under control. Calm down now. We had given North Korean aid when they were starving and lifted sanctions so that they could buy food, which they lied to us. Russia lied to us. China lied to us. And they advanced their nuclear program. And this is what happens when you don't stop them. When you don't stop people who have been for years saying, we're going to strike the United States. And at some point, you have to say, I'm going to take you at your word. Now you're going to know what my word is. And if I'm going to punish you, I'm going to punish you bad. And they got an awakening. They weren't dealing with a Jimmy Carter. They weren't dealing with a George Bush. They weren't dealing with a Bill Clinton and Obama. They were dealing with a president now who said, you're weeks away from creating a nuclear weapon. You have rockets. You'll figure out how to mount it and how to send it. And then what do we do? And he decided, chop the head off the snake now. And that's what he did. I'm not saying that there's not going to be repercussions from this. And, Iran in a death throw. Even the last days of Germany, they caused a lot of damage. The difference is but Israel has taken out a lot of Iran's capability to strike back, but they could strike back. No one is talking about their anti-shipping capability. Their anti-shipping missiles. We're keeping our Navy far enough out there that it would kind of make it hard for them to do. And once we have air superiority, which we have air superiority, then we can fly in missions, we could have refuelers and stuff, and we could still keep our Navy out far enough that if they were to try to attack us, you have like picket boats out there that can intercept, and if they don't get it, there's another row, and then if they don't get it, there's the final action. And more than likely we would stop it, but then more than likely we would retaliate with a slew of weaponry that Iran, and we would actually put boots down in the ground, and we would force a regime change. The Ayatollah could run to Russia. I don't think China wants him because China's not too happy about Islam in their country. And I don't think any of the other Arab countries want anything to do with him. And I think that you even the radical leaders there, radical other Ayatollahs in waiting, would have to think twice. You know, they try to put a moderate in there. But that moderate would have no control over the civilians. They'd put in a, civilian-controlled government, and secular has nothing, no say, can't arrest people, can't do anything like that, and put laws right on the books right away that if secular tries to get the people to riot and try to overthrow that, they go to jail too. And just like here, you can't do that. Now, in those countries, easier said than done. But if you were to go back to a pre-revolution Iran, but that is 40 years ago. Those people are gone. Dead. You just have these people here that have nothing. All they've been told their whole life is, hate America, hate the West. So, major problems there with winning the peace. Worse than Iraq or Afghanistan. But not impossible. What would be impossible is a nuclear Iran. Because there was no one that could control them. North Korea, China, China wants to turn off the spigot to them, and Russia is in such trouble that, they have to go to North Korea for help. Yeah. I mean, you could starve them into submission. I don't want to do that, and I don't think that would be a wise choice. And I don't think South Korea would want that either. But this is something that will have to be dealt with, and we'll have to deal with it. But one tyrant and dictator at a time, folks. And you have AOC that's screaming for the impeachment of the president. You have Senator Kaine. You have all these people lining up. Chris Van Hollen. Just lining up. Schumer. You haven't heard much from Pelosi or anything. I don't know what's going on with her, but I think she's sick. I think there's a lot of problems going on with Pelosi, and she probably is keeping her head down because everything that's coming out about Biden is just going to point to her, Schumer, Jeffries, and there's going to be a huge to do about that come midterms. And Democrats, just so you know, we're going to use everything that you're saying against you. Everything. Your love for Iran. Your dislike of democracy. Your vice chair, David Hogg, said the problem in America is democracy. The second in charge of the DNC had said that. And not a word out of any of the Democrats except one, John Fetterman. And then what do they do to Fetterman? Oh, he's crazy. Oh, he's having all mental problems again. But when he was running for election, he was perfectly fine. And again, this is the lie of the Democrat. How are you going to escape that? How are you going to go now and say, all right, that happened, we lied, we got caught, those people lied. But I'm a Democrat that had nothing to do with that. And I believe in the Constitution. I believe in voting. I believe in all this. And they're going to have to try to rebrand themselves. But honestly, I think it's too late. I think the deeper President Trump is able to dig into, like with Doge, will be the end of many Democrats and quite a number of Republicans too. This problem did not present itself because of Democrats only. No, 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 no. There are Republicans who are just as responsible for the problems that we're in. And those too shall be exposed. And those people, believe me, Trump is going to go after. Not in the sense of going after. He's just going to campaign against them come time. And he's just going to go, guy can't be trusted. Look at him. Look at him. Ayatollah lover. He would have been more than happy to sleep at night with the Ayatollah with 60 atomic bombs pointing at, Europe and America and Israel. That's what's going to happen. Bumper stickers. Honk if you agree a nuclear Iran is good. Honk if you want to be forced to stay in your houses again. Honk if you think the government should force you into experiments with inoculations. That's all coming up on 2026. The GOP didn't want to do that in 2024 because it would ramp up the rhetoric, and you might have gotten Democrats to come out and vote. So it didn't happen. Now they're going to do it. Because those Democrats that didn't vote are looking towards the Republicans. They're going to snatch them up. They're going to say, these are the people that wanted to have a nuclear Iran, that paid protesters to burn your cities, and your Tim Walz's, they allowed it. The riots going on in LA, the looting. San Francisco's a ghost town for businesses. And they're just going to point towards that. And they're going to use their own words, the Democrats' own words. Summer of love. Want another summer of love? Social justice. You want that? Honk if you want social justice burning your cities down. Vote Democrat if you want cities to burn down. I mean, it's all going to be out there. And I try not to be biased, and I'm not biased. I'm just telling you what's going to happen. That's not a bias. A bias would be anything Trump does is wonderful. A bias would be, I don't believe in the Constitution, but whatever Trump says is good enough for me. A bias would be that if Trump does something that upsets the liberals, then he must be doing something right. That would be a bias. And that is something I don't have. I have an opinion. And as I stated on everything, I'm a conservative-leaning podcast. But I do look at the pros and cons. I do look at both sides where both sides could have an argument with. Things that are in the Constitution that are now being questioned, both sides can have teeth on that, could have a grip on what they're saying. And then give it to the Supreme Court then if it goes all the way up that high. And if the Supreme Court will hear it, if not, if the Supreme Court will not hear an argument, then whatever that other court below them did, yeah, guess what? That's what you got to do. If something is brought to the Supreme Court by either side to go, we want you to hear this, and they turn around and they go, no, we're not going to hear it. We're not hearing it. And we're not giving you a reason why. They don't have to give you a reason. And when they go, take it back to the lower court. That can mean that either the lower court got it right or the lower court needs to look at it under the arguments that you made to us but didn't make to them. But that's a funny way to go, and they do that. The Supreme Court does say, no, go back, you can take it back to the lower court. And usually if it ends up back into that 3-judge panel type of thing, they might want to look at it, and they might go, no, we got it right. We're sticking by it. This is what we got. And the Supreme Court might turn around and go, hey, that be the deal. And if it's really off the scales of being constitutional, the Supreme Court would hear it. The Supreme Court is going to tackle the 14th Amendment. There's going to be a lot of people very dissatisfied with whatever they come up with. You have Supreme Court Justice Jackson, who said that you're dealing with a Supreme Court majority that just look at the text of the Constitution, what the words say. Well, those are the words. And she should be careful in what she says with that. Because if you go into the 14th Amendment and look at why birthrights were inserted, you'll find that it was only for African Americans that were brought here. And how do you deal with children of African Americans that were been here for generations now? Are they not citizens? So she's a bright scholar and lawyer. She wouldn't have been where she got to. I think it was a horrible choice, but it doesn't mean she isn't smart. But there, when she said that, the other justices are much wiser. And they'll very politely school her on that when asked by other news organizations. And they'll say, we don't make up words. We look at the intent of that amendment. What were they trying to do? And you have briefs and you have histories on every person that was involved in writing of the 14th Amendment. Opinions, letters, arguments back and forth on the floor. And you will find that it was to deal with African Americans. And if a court said in 1912 that, it had to deal, that it also dealt with Japanese or Chinese or whatever, now, they were wrong. They were wrong because it only dealt with people that were brought over here in bondage. Not people that came here voluntarily and not following our immigration laws. It's not going to have anything to do with jurisdiction. It's going to have everything to do with sovereignty. Now, I'm no expert on the law, but common sense tells me, well, if you read the Constitution, I guarantee you there are very few people that can explain it. And what the meanings were, and even bother to look up what the intent was. And you just have people screaming and yelling, and from both sides. From both sides. I hear arguments on why, that birthright, they don't have it, and you look and you go, all right, I agree they don't have it, but that's not the reason why. And if you're going to use that as a reason why, you're going to lose that argument. Because the argument's deeper than that. So, we'll see what happens with that. Supreme Court justices have come to terms on some major issues that really even surprised a lot of people where they got majority votes, or unanimous votes, 9-0, And again, I have complete trust and faith in our Supreme Court. I have complete faith in it. So, I'm not upset by rulings. That's the way our game is played. And because you don't like a particular rule and you want to flip the whole table over and go, I don't want to go with any of the rules. Well, really? We have an immigration policy. We have an immigration law that has not been held up. There is no such thing as a state being a sanctuary city or state or town. It's not allowed. States cannot take jurisdiction over the federal government. The federal government can take jurisdiction over a state because, like in computer rights, rights flow down. From the top down. They don't flow up. The states are here. The federal government is above them. And that's the way it works, folks. You can challenge that. But until there's a ruling that says that law is no good, you must obey that law. And when you have candidates, not even candidates, when you have elected officials who hold up their hands and swear to uphold the Constitution of the United States and its laws, and then don't. If and I believe there is a God. I believe in God. And I'm asking God to let me win Mega Lotto so I could help people, which I would help people, and I could sue, hire a law firm, 10 million bucks. You go after this guy, you go after this guy, go to that state, petition, and go after these people for malfeasance of office. You took an oath. Well, I'm looking at it and in a broader, I don't care what sense you're taking it. You violate the law. And if you, again, sit there and go, we're not going to obey that law, then you're saying all our laws are like on a smorgasbord. I can pick and choose which one I want. Is that what you're telling me? Because that's what I'm hearing. And people can have the best intent in going, we shouldn't be deporting these people, and they came here for a better life, just like immigrants before them. And they're right. That is a true statement, but it's not a finished statement. Because the ones that came in and were documented and applied for citizenship or applied for a visa to stay here, well, those people did the right thing. Those people did. They followed the rules. I have my grandparents' immigration papers on my wall. I just don't understand the idea where they think that because we're going to call them parolees, or dreamers. There's no such thing in our laws on that. In our immigration law, there's nothing about dreamers. There have been laws made about the dreamers, but it doesn't fold into our immigration policy, our immigration law. And it's the same thing. As long as you get your big toe on U.S. soil, you're here. That's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. There's no place in the statutes that say that. This was make-believe. And the Republicans are just as guilty of it. I'm not saying this is all Democrats or anything like that. This has been going on for a long time. But when you have a government that allows 12 million people over, not for sanctuary issues, but for political ones because they wanted votes. They side-railed money that should have gone to American citizens and took care of illegals. They're buying cars, furniture on a debit card, applying for Social Security, disability, Medicare, Medicaid. Free housing, EBT, money every month. It's crazy world. Crazy world. Can't continue. Can't continue. We have so many problems in this country. Some are just inherently a problem. Racial issues are inherently a problem. In Boston, Irish need not apply. We've had racial problems. It's inherent to us. But what we do have are laws that protect, in the last 60 years, that protect people from being taken advantage of. And they went so as far as to take your rights away to give it to someone else and said, no, you don't have them because they didn't have them and we're going to make up for it. That was affirmative action. That was quotas. And so when the Supreme Court said, you can't do that, you can't do that. Well, the Democrats came up with DEI, and they tried to worm that into everything. And DEI became affirmative action. A rose by any other name is still a rose. You can't do that. The Democrats hate playing fair. Skills and ability should get you the job. Education should get you a job. Demanding that a McDonald's worker make $50,000 a year because they don't have an education. And you look at them and you go, all right, they're 22 years old. They had over 40 years to get an education that was given to them, that was applied towards them. And instead, they dropped out of school, did petty crimes, so now they can't get jobs. Yeah. Well, why should McDonald's have to pay them $50,000 a year? So what did the fast foods companies start to do? And they're starting to go with kiosks. You're going to use AI. You pull up now to a McDonald's, and the first thing it asks you, it's a computer asking you. And then if you don't have a special, you didn't order something via online, then it just clicks right into person on a headphone, and you wait in line 20 cars deep because they only got 2 people doing it. And if you go inside a McDonald's, you got a kiosk there with a million different things and you can't figure it out. And you got people behind you that use it all the time and go, hey, pal, you push the button that shows a hamburger. And I want to ask this person something. No, you can't. But they'll figure it out. They will get like autonomous. They'll get that down. They'll get AI down to where you could walk up to, hello, how are you? Great. I want a cheeseburger. I want the number 1, no mayo. And boom, number 1, no mayo. Boom, boom. And, you didn't select a drink. It comes with a drink. Oh, I'll have a Coke. All right, so boom, 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 boom. Is the order correct? Yep. Proceed to the drive-in. You're number 18 when you get up there, or whatever, and, hey, 18. All right, 18. Boom, boom. And the person's there and takes it. And soon that person won't be there. You'll have to swipe a card. There'll be no more cash. If you want to do cash, you're going to have to walk inside and deal with, the one person, that's going to be inside. And you'll have 3 people cooking and moving food to the person at the window. Or even not, they'll go, you're number 18, it goes into a big thing, 18, boom, 18, go. Thank you. Come again. It worked for Horn and Hearted. Any of you remember Horn and Hearted? I do. Used to love going there with my grandmother. They'll be taking those $50,000 a year jobs away. Now, they might have to pay someone $50,000 a year to flip a burger, but they're not going to be paying 20 of them that. They'll be paying 5 of them. And now you go to McDonald's, and I just use McDonald's as an example. I have nothing against McDonald's. I do have problems with McDonald's, but I still go. The problem will be that the prices now are making it unattainable. You go with a family of 5 to McDonald's, you're dropping $60. If you go to a local establishment with a family of 5, you're going to drop $60, but your food's going to be brought to you. You're going to have to leave a tip. But you sit down, it's brought to you, it's food. It's not, some package, and again, you don't know what's happening in the back of the restaurant that's not happening at McDonald's. I would say probably happening at McDonald's. You're a lot safer than a lot of restaurants you go to as far as foodborne. Big chains, they have protocols that must be met. And if they don't, they get in trouble. So that's the beauty of having that type of consistency. I can go to a McDonald's in South Carolina and go to a McDonald's in Florida, and other than location, there is no difference. So, but the Democrats must get on board with our laws, and they must connect with the people, the voters, and they're not. They are going to a fringe element, and all these people run out there and they were protesting. They go, "Oh, Harris is going to sweep all." They didn't vote. These were people coming in from other states that they were bringing in. The people in those states were just like, "No, yeah, I don't know who they are." They show up in buses, and you could follow. There were hundreds of buses all over the place. They brought them in. They gamed the system. And this will all be brought out in the 2026 midterms. You won't see a Democrat again for a while. They're going to have to reinvent themselves. All right, we got about a minute to go here. Give to a charity. Charity does begin at home, but if you can afford to, give something to a reputable charity. You go to them, they don't go to you. If you don't want to do that, give to a local food bank. 4 cans. Just give 4 cans a week. Beans, corn, SpaghettiOs, little hot dogs in the metal can. Something that people could eat. 4 cans to you doesn't seem like a lot, but if you don't have any food, those 4 cans can make all the difference in the world for some people. A $20 spot to a charity. That $20 might go to someone who needs gas money to go for an interview. And now they can do it. Or go to Goodwill and buy a good shirt and a nice pair of slacks that they can go on an interview and get a job. Or could just buy clothes for their children. And you could say, well, hey, I work. You could make all the excuses for not giving as you want. But when you look at, does that $20 make a difference in my life? No, not going to mean anything. But to someone else, that $20 could mean everything. So with that, do that. Good night, everyone. I am going to fade to black here. Actually, I'm probably just going to fade back out to this and probably go to black and then stop my feed. All right. Thank you, everyone. And hopefully, let's see what happens with still 2. And we go to that.